Hey all, welcome to On the Crime Beat with Ed. Today we're going to talk about the Brian Shaffer disappearance. This is a case that has really intrigued me for a very long time. This is one of those cases where, yes, there is a right answer and yes, there's a wrong answer, but we don't know what it is yet. It is still, as of May 8th, 2025, unsolved. And I think that there's a reason why it's unsolved. I do have a theory, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, just get ready. Let me know what you think, because this is one of those cases where there's a twist at every turn, and it's going to be. So, let's talk about Brian Shaffer. He was a med student at Ohio State University. Uh, Various accounts say different things. Mostly what everyone agrees on is he was a student. His mom passed away a few weeks before the rest of the story takes place, and he was in a very bad place. And again, accounts vary here, but on March 31st, 2000, and on March 31st, 2006, it was the end of the semester. Some people say that he went out to have a steak dinner with his dad and then met his buddy Clint at the bar. But other people say that that's not exactly what happened. So some people say that Brian Shaffer was not on good terms with his father. Other people argue that yes, they had some issues, particularly surrounding financing for his schooling, but Brian and his dad had worked through that, especially with the death of his mother. I tend to believe that they had more issues. Um, and I'll get into why later. I've already written about it once. But the same thing with his girlfriend. After he disappeared, she was, very much, we were in love and all that. But beforehand, there are credible witnesses who said that they fought a lot, and that at least one of them cheated on the other. Again, that doesn't. Neither one of. Neither Brian Schaefer's father nor his girlfriend are suspects in this at all. They weren't around. We know for a fact that his girlfriend was away visiting her family. The only reason why I bring up that there was a tense relationship is because of theories that we're going to talk about later. So, on the night of March 31st, 2006, Brian Shaffer went to visit, or went out to see his friend Clint. We know that for a fact. And we know that at some point during the evening, Brian was speaking to a couple of ladies who were not his girlfriend, outside of a bar called the Ugly Tuna. By this point, we're presuming that he was pretty drunk, as were his companions. So, Brian was off socializing, what we're going to call it, and doing that sort of thing. Around the time of closing, Clint and their friend Meredith, who had joined them, began looking for Brian, but he was nowhere to be found. And this is where things get really interesting, because Brian Shaffer vanished without a trace. Police have looked at the security footage. They have tried to find all sorts of clues and asked for tips. At one point, his cell phone was still pinging, and they followed up on that. And it was always within the area, at least initially. His girlfriend, Brian's girlfriend, actually would call, and one time in September, it actually rang through. So the cell phone rang through. Nobody answered, and when the police followed up on this lead, they were told it was probably just a mistake. Uh, that's not something I believe. But that is what was said. So, and this is where the dad and the girlfriend really begin to play a role in trying to find Brian. To their credit, whatever their relationships with him were, they really went out and tried to find him. His dad even hired a psychic, who claimed that Brian's body would be found in a riverbed. Now, this was really concerning because there was an alleged serial killer called the Smiley Face serial killer in the area at that time. So let's jump into some of these theories. Because the smiley face killer is one of the theories because of the psychic. Brian's body was not found where the psychic said it would be found, and there's actually no reason to believe that he was anywhere near the river. Another theory is that he never left the bar, that his body is still in the bar, or there was a massive conspiracy with the bar employees to cover it up. Again, there's no evidence of this. The bar has been swept, people, like multiple times by multiple law enforcement agencies. And so there's really no reason to believe that he was killed in the bar and is still there. Another is that he was killed in the bar, but his body was moved to a local landfill. Now, there's nothing to suggest this, and there's a really interesting reason to believe that he was not murdered, in that he is actually still alive. And that reason is there's been multiple sightings of him, everywhere from Michigan to Tennessee to Texas, the U.S. Virgin Islands. We're going to get to that in a second. And most recently in Mexico. Now, none of these sightings panned out, allegedly, but there are reasons to believe that Brian is still alive. One of the theories that I think really holds a lot of water is he was just simply really unhappy with his life and chucked it all. Um, and, and here's the thing. Here's why I think that this is a really interesting. Why this is a really interesting theory. As I mentioned, he and his girlfriend had a rocky relationship. Yes, she has said that he planned on proposing, but not everyone agrees with that. A lot of people think that they were using this trip as a chance to salvage what was left of their relationship. He had a rocky relationship with his dad. The only one who he probably wouldn't have done this to is his brother. Um, so, yeah. And there's also been sightings of him in New York. But I promised to talk about the U.S. Virgin Islands, and I really want to address that. So, Brian's father died in 2008. I'm not going to get into. Um, I'm not going to get into everything about this death, but if you read about the case, you know. If you know, you know. Um, but one of the things that has really struck people is on his dad's memorial site, someone left a message from the U.S. Virgin Islands, saying that he loved his dad and whatever. And it was signed with Brian's name. Now, a lot of people like to pass this off as, just an imposter or someone playing a cruel joke. But outside of the true crime community, I don't know how many people really knew Brian. And I don't know anyone who would do something so cruel. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really make sense. So if I'm saying that it doesn't make sense for someone to be cruel and do that, and I'm saying I don't think he left because he was unhappy with his life, what do I think? This is a theory that has come to me. Like I said, I've been studying this case over many years, and I've only given a condensed version. Think of this as cream of true crime. That was a really bad joke. Anyways, I believe that Brian Shaffer was taken into witness protection. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but I'm only going to share a couple of my reasonings right now. Because, first of all, I want to write a book, but more importantly, I don't want this to get too long. So, in the area where he lived, there was a lot of crime. The mafia was really big out there. There were allegations of a serial killer being on the loose. It's not hard for me to fathom that he witnessed a crime, and it would be very easy for the government to help him disappear without a trace. All of the sightings of him made me really skeptical that he died. And then as I mentioned, he was spotted in Mexico, allegedly homeless, and there was a picture taken of him, the Virgin Islands thing. But there's one more piece of key evidence that I think often goes overlooked, and there's a reason why I think it goes overlooked. The reason is because the cops didn't barely batted an eye at it. His apartment, just days after he went missing, his apartment was broken into. Nothing of value was taken, but allegedly some clothes were, and things of that sort. Now, why would someone need clothes when not a TV or a DVD player? I mean, this was 2006 after all. And so the fact that those things were left behind really intrigued me. And like I said, no one could prove that the government did anything. So there you have it. The case, as I mentioned at the top, the case is unsolved. But I want to know what you think. Tell me your theories in the comments. And let me know what you